Borodar, good morning. It's 10 past 11 and time to hear from the programme directors of our MA education programmes. Subtitles in English and Welsh are available, and we'll start with an introduction from our conference coordinator, Gemma Mitchell.
Borodar, pawb a croeso yn ôl. Good morning and welcome back. So we're delighted to welcome 3 of our MA education staff for this particular carousel of presentations. The first is Dr. Rhiannon Packer. She's the Programme Director for the MA Education Wales, and she's a Senior Lecturer in Additional Learning Needs. So we're going to hand over now to Rhiannon's presentation, followed by a short video and an opportunity for you to ask some questions.
Hello, my name is Dr. Rhiannon Packer, and I'm going to talk to you today about the National MA in Education. So this is a programme that is aimed at practising teachers, and we look to recruit teachers who are in their coming to the end of their second year of practice, so going into their 3rd year. So I'm going to give you an introduction to the programme and then an overview of the modules that you can take as part of the programme. And because you are newly qualified teachers, you will already have 60 credits at level 7 from your ITE, your PGCE qualification, and this will enable you to go into the second year of the programme. So you will start in year 2, you will do some modules in year 2, as I'll show you in a moment, and then you will go on to do your dissertation. So this programme has been designed with 7 higher education institutes. So you can see the 7 at the bottom of the slide. So Cardiff Met has been working with Aberystwyth, Bangor, Wrexham, Glyndŵr, University of South Wales, Swansea and Trinity St David's. And we've all come together to develop this programme, and we are offering the programme in each institution. So the idea is that we work in our institutions, but we also bring teachers from across Wales to participate, and you will have an opportunity to meet people working in different parts of Wales to discuss your practice. It's an online course mostly. We do ask you to come into a face-to-face induction session, and I'll explain that briefly in a moment. But the rest of the teaching is online. So you have a mix of asynchronous online learning. So that's learning that you do in your own time via PebblePad. And then you will be required to come to 2 Saturdays per module, which are live online sessions. And I'll talk a little bit about those in a moment. As I said previously, it's a level 7 qualification, it's a master's, but the idea of this master's is that you are able to connect your practice, so things that you see in your classroom, in your school, things that happen on a day-to-day basis, and that you're able to connect that with current research. And this is why really that the Welsh Government has stipulated that if you're going to apply for funding for this, so there are funded places for this programme, you need to be within year 3 to 6 of practice. So it's the thought that you will have embedded yourself within your setting, you'll have time to settle, to start becoming a proficient teacher, that you'll have time then because you'll have had lots of opportunities to plan, you'll have a better idea of what is required of you as a practitioner, and then you'll have a little bit of time to undertake the masters. So as I mentioned earlier, because you've got those level 7 credits, you will have 60 credits at level 7 from your PGCE. You will come into the second year of the programme, and we have 4 specialist strands. So curriculum, leadership, ALN and wellbeing. There's a star by leadership and ALN because currently these are pathways. There is a plan that there will be a curriculum pathway and a wellbeing pathway coming shortly, but as yet they're not in place. By the time you apply, hopefully those pathways will be available to you. So currently we have a leadership and an ALN pathway, and what that means is that you will have 3 modules available to you, and if you want to follow that pathway, you choose 2 out of the 3 modules. And alongside that, we have these core modules, which are advanced research and inquiry skills that you undertake in your second year. So when you start with the 2 modules that you've chosen, and then when you go into your third year, you will undertake the dissertation. So these are the modules that are running at the moment, and the blue indicates the terms that that you will study them. So module 1 is in term 1, and that is from October to January, and you have a choice of one of these 4 modules. So you could choose emotional and mental health and well-being, exploring pedagogies, leading and managing education professionals, or inclusive classroom practice. So you will choose one of those in term 1. Term 2, you will choose either equity and diversity, or curriculum design and realisation, or leading organisational change, or leading and managing of ALN. And what this means is that if you're planning to follow a particular pathway, so for example the leadership pathway, you would choose 2 out of the orange modules, and if you were thinking about the additional learning needs pathway, you would choose 2 out of the green modules. Alternatively, if you just fancy the 2 of the modules, you can choose 2 in either of the within the blue bands, so they have to be term 1, term 2. You can't do 2 in term 1, for example. And then running alongside that throughout the year is the advanced research and inquiry skills, and that runs in a slightly different way, which I'll explain shortly. So each module is divided into 4 core strands. So you have your induction week. So for example, if you started in September, everybody would come onto campus the first face-to-face session where we give you an introduction to M level, master's level. We talk about key concepts on the masters. We'll talk about in more depth the delivery model, expectations from us and our expectations of you, and we will talk about the assignment. So you'll all come together as a cohort, and then you will have already chosen your modules, and you'll go off with your module leader for some more in-depth discussion about that module. Then you will go away and then you will undertake the asynchronous learning, which will be on PebblePad, and it's divided, as I said earlier, into those 4 core strands. So you will initially undertake core strand 1 and core strand 2. And then we have what we call conference Saturdays, and those are online live sessions that go on all day on a Saturday, where you will discuss you will be with the module group from across Wales, and you will discuss aspects of Core Strand 1 and Core Strand 2 with all your fellow learners from across Wales. In addition to those that day as well, we also organise Ask the Expert sessions, where we bring in international speakers to come and talk about aspects of the module content. So for example, we've had experts from Canada, from Australia, from Finland come to talk about aspects of the module in question. Then you go away and you go back to your asynchronous learning on PebblePad, and you will undertake preparation work or preparatory work for Core Strand 3 and 4 of the module, and then come back again and meet with the national cohort, all of Wales, to discuss Core Strand 3 and 4. And then you go off then, you've got some other work online, asynchronous work then to link to the assignment. And underpinning all of this, you will have fortnightly optional sessions with your module leader at Cardiff Met, where you can ask any questions, discuss any aspects of the module, etc., and have some open discussions about that. In addition, we also offer some cohort sessions around referencing, accessing the library, etc. So those will be available to you in addition to the optional live sessions as well. Okay, so to give you an idea of how it works, this year, these are the Saturdays that have been designated for the conference delivery days. So we've got 2 Saturdays for Module 1, 2 Saturdays for Module 2, and then if you're doing the 3rd module in the 3rd term, those are the Saturdays. So depending on what you've chosen, those are the dates where you'll be required to attend for the Saturdays. And these have been agreed in consultation with practicing teachers and with stakeholders about the best days to organise this. And then I mentioned the Advanced Research and Inquiry Skills module. So you won't be required to attend on a Saturday for this. As I said, it will run across the year. So these will be a series of twilight sessions across the year where the national cohort will come together and discuss aspects of the Advanced Research and Inquiry Skills. And you will be given all these dates in the induction, so you will know what dates, what Saturdays you'll be required to attend, and the dates of these twilight sessions. And they're all geared to work around you as a practicing teacher, so they'll all be after school or on a Saturday. So that you'll be able to undertake that as well as your day-to-day work. So I know we're thinking about this in about 2 years' time, but just to and you can always come back to the PowerPoint, and I'll give you my details at the end, so you can contact me at any time. And we do have the information all on the Cardiff Met website, so it's MA Education Wales. To make an application, but just to remind you, so what you need if you are going for the Welsh Government funded route, you need to evidence that you live in Wales for at least 3 years. So if you're living in Wales now, you can probably evidence 3 years of living in Wales by the time you come to make an application. You need to have a degree or equivalent. Obviously you need to have QTS, and as you graduate from Cardiff Met you will have those 60 credits at level 7, which will enable you to come into the 2nd year of the programme, which is what I've just discussed. You need to be teaching in an educational setting that's in Wales, so if you're working in England you're not eligible to apply. You need to be employed on a 0.4 or more contract. So you can be part-time or full-time, but it must be 0.4 or above. And you need to be between year 3 or 6 of practice. So that means that as you come to the end of your 2nd year, if you're really keen to do the course, you can apply towards the end of your 2nd year to start in your 3rd year of practice. And these are my details, so you can contact me via email. I'm more than happy to have a chat about the programme. Just email me and we can have a chat about it. But make a note of my email address, so if you might want to contact me in about 1.5 years, 2 years' time. And what I've got here is a student, Harry. She's a current student on the programme, and I thought it would be nice for her to give you an overview of her experience having undertaken the Masters this year. So this year she's done all the taught modules, and she's about to start the dissertation in September, October. So I thought it'd give you a flavour of how she's experienced the programme. And if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for listening.
I made my application to do my Masters with Cardiff Met because I wanted to further develop my professional learning, and I really wanted to continue with my higher education. So far, I've really enjoyed the course. It's nice and balanced between school. It can get a bit busy sometimes, but you have lots of support from your tutors and mentors. It also helps you narrow in on what you actually want to focus on in the education spectrum. So for example, I focus a lot on ALN, and I feel like already that's benefited me and my teaching career, and also with strategies I use within my own classroom. And so far I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, diolch yn fawr, Rhiannon. A great presentation that makes me feel really excited. I wish I was at this point in my career all over again. having listened to that. Now, lots and lots of information provided to us in that presentation. And it was lovely to hear Harry's experience there as well at the end. But I'm mindful, especially looking at some of the questions that are coming in from students, that perhaps they need to revisit a few of those points that you've made there in your very informative presentation. So if I can go to Lisa Fenn, my colleague and our conference facilitator. Lisa, would you mind directing some questions, please, to Rhiannon that have come in from the students?
Not at all. Good morning. Thank you, Rhiannon, for all of that information, but there's a lot to take in. So I wonder if we can just reiterate a few points, please. I certainly did my master's 4 years into my teaching degree with an ambition to be a head teacher. Didn't happen. Here I am at Cardiff Met, but there we are. So the first question, Rhiannon, please, can you just remind us where and how can I apply to do an MA, please?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I appreciate there's an awful lot of information. So if you want to contact me later down the line, please do. But a good way to start looking is just to Google Cardiff Met MA Education Wales. And it's important to put that Wales bit at the end because that directs you to this particular programme, which is aimed at practising teachers. And this is the programme where you can get the Welsh Government funding for.
Oh, thank you, Rhiannon. That's really clear now. Thank you. Next question, please. Will I be able to pursue interests specific to my practice in the context of my school, or is there a set programme that I have to engage with?
Right, so yes and yes to both. You do need to engage with a set programme, and those are the modules which I outlined earlier. So you choose the modules that are of interest to you, but all the assignments relate to your own practice. So as you already know, my background is additional learning needs. So on the additional learning needs modules, we talk generically about the ALN Act and the code and how that's impacting upon practice. And you have opportunities to discuss your own practice with others and then listen to what other people are saying in their settings. And then the assessment is centred around that. So it's centred around what you've learned in terms of the theory, in terms of the research that's out there, and how you can link that to your own practice. So it's definitely around what is of interest to you and how you can relate that to the current literature that's out there.
Oh, thank you, Rhiannon. Again, very clear information there. The next question that I've got, Rhiannon, we're privileged to have students from international students and home students on the PGC programme, and both sets of students are asking, how do my 60 credits from the PGCE work towards an MA, please?
So for this MA, and it is just particular to this MA only, so just be mindful of that. The Welsh Government have agreed that they will honour or acknowledge then that those 60 credits as part of the first year application. So because you're what we term early career practitioners, your 60 credits then will enable you to not have to do the first year of the MA. So you all go straight into the second year, and that was the focus of my discussion. So there are year one modules, but most people come in onto the second year of the programme, and those are the modules that I've been talking about. So you do 3 modules, so 20 credit modules, 60 credits, plus your 60 credits from your PGCE, and then you've got a 60 credit dissertation, and the 180 credits, maths there, the 180 credits then is the whole masters.
Ah, brilliant. Thank you, Rhiannon. Again, very clear information. And if we could just finish, I don't know, Tom, if we've got a minute about funding, home and international students. You said that there were grants for home students. How about any funding for international students? Are you aware of?
I don't know about international students at the moment. As I said, the stipulations are made by the Welsh Government in terms of funding. I know that they are looking at offering this programme to international students in the future. Where we are with that currently, I don't know. But if those international students decided to stay in Wales, and you've already been here a year, by the time you've come to 2 years of practice, that will be 3 years, you will be eligible to apply for the funding. So you need to evidence residency in Wales for 3 years to apply for the funding, as well as the other criteria. But all the criteria is on the website, so you can go and check later if you need to.
Okay, and just one last question about the funding. Is it about £6,500 we're looking at here each year?
It's £6,500 for the whole programme. So basically, all your study fees are paid for. So they pay for the whole study fees. So yeah, it's a free course in essence.
Oh well, must have then, must do.
Many
thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Diolch.
Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, Lisa. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thanks for clearing up those queries for us, Rhiannon. I anticipated we would have a few there because it is so much information, but wow, what an exciting opportunity. And I can certainly say I do wish that my opportunity had been funded. So go for it, guys. If you've got the inclination, please do. You know where to look. The link has been posted in the Q&A there for you as well. So Rhiannon, we're now going to move on to a presentation from Dr. Jan Heighton, who supports the postgraduate framework for professional learning in education. So I'll hand over to Dr. Jan Heighton now.
The postgraduate framework for professional learning works in a specific way for Cardiff Met's PGCE graduates. We have 7 programmes of study available, and I'm going to concentrate mainly on the MA Education Policy and Practice, with some additional information on MA Education Additional Learning Needs and MA Leadership in Education. Our new programmes have been designed with unique features that make them responsive to the current context of education in Wales. Our interprofessional and multi-agency ethos resonate well with the current policy and curriculum priorities, and enables us to offer you the widest range possible of modules to suit a variety of interests and specialties. You'll be taught alongside colleagues from other education professions, which helps to reflect the realities of how you will work in schools and other education contexts. Such interprofessional and multi-agency knowledge can be very useful for job interviews and promotion prospects. Our taught sessions are made up of a blend of online and on-campus delivery, and all modules are delivered at times that do not clash with school commitments. You'll need 180 credits for a full MA. You already have 60 credits from your PGCE. All students take a module called Practitioner Research, which is the first module you take, and it concentrates on uplifting your academic skills to level 7, and also importantly for a programme such as MA Education Policy and Practice, it helps to develop your reflection and reflective practice skills to help you reflect on your own practice more deeply and more critically analytically, which is important both for level 7 assessments and also for developing your own professional practice. All students also take a 60 credit dissertation, which is designed to allow you to choose a topic of particular interest in the education context. These are our policy and practice optional modules, of which you would take 2 if you are bringing in your 60 level 7 credits from your PGCE. The Transforming Health and Physical Education module is one we're quite excited about. We've developed it this year in conjunction with our colleagues in sport and health sciences. And it's probably of particular interest to the many PE teachers who join our MA Education Policy and Practice, but it would also be of wider interest to anyone who's interested in issues around health and physical literacy in the curriculum. Exploring the social and emotional development of learners is a module that we've run for a number of years because it's always been very, very popular. And each year it gets updated with the latest knowledge and research, some of which is conducted at Cardiff Met, looking at issues around growth mindset, quiet and shy children, and many, many other social and emotional aspects of the learning process. The additional learning needs and inclusion module is particularly useful as Wales implements the new additional learning needs policy and practice in schools. Holistic approaches to education looks at unusual and interesting collaborative and alternative approaches to education using nature, covers aspects such as forest schools. And we've always been lucky to be able to attract international speakers who've been brought into this module to enhance and broaden its scope and to align us with the latest knowledge in this area. Education, equality, diversity and equity looks at a number of social justice issues that occur in education and how these might be addressed. We have 3 modules developed around our youth and community aspect of our range of modules. Youth culture and subculture, young people and the internet, and adolescent development and learning each are designed to look at various aspects of how young people develop and transition into adulthood. Our leadership and management module looks at the management of professional practice both in an organisational and a people context, including aspects such as professional supervision and how organisations are managed strategically and operationally. The multi-agency practice module looks specifically at how organisations work together to provide services for children and young people. Curriculum development is useful for anyone developing a new curriculum and resources, which pretty much is most people at the current time. Mentoring and coaching looks at processes, policies and their application, and looks at mentoring and coaching for young people and also for colleagues who are looking at mentoring and coaching for professional development. And finally, critical analysis of educational data looks at how to interpret, evaluate research reports and data to reflect the story behind the data. So if you're bringing in your 60 level 7 credits, you would take just 2 options from this range of modules. If you are not bringing in your level 7 credits, you would have the opportunity to choose 5 of these options. Our MA Leadership in Education offers simply the MA, the leadership and management of professional practice as a core, and has those options there: multi-agency practice, curriculum development, mentoring and coaching, and critical analysis of educational data, each of which has a specific aspect of leadership involved with it. And the MA Education Additional Learning Needs has 3 core modules in addition to practitioner research, and these are ALN and inclusion, autism spectrum disorder in children and young people, and specific learning difficulties. And then you've got the option then of taking one of the leadership or multi-agency practice modules, or exploring social and emotional development, or English as an additional language. Costs for Cardiff Met PGCE graduates. If you bring in your 60 PGCE credits, these costs are considerably reduced. So a combination of not having to pay for those credits that you're bringing in and the 25% alumni discount, which applies to all Cardiff Met graduates, will bring your total cost down to £5,040, which is pretty much 50% of what the full MA would cost. Students who enrol for all 180 credits are eligible for grants and loans to pay that cost, and all students may choose to pay by instalments. You might find it helpful to book a call or a Teams or face-to-face meeting with me to discuss your options. I'm Dr. Jan Heighton, I'm the Programme Director. This is my email address here on this slide. There are aspects about the application process or maybe the timetable that you might want to ask about, the way in which the modules are delivered. Length of study is between 2 and 5 years for a part-time student. Obviously, if you bring in your PGCE credits, that would progress much more quickly. Fees can be a little bit complex sometimes, so you may want to ask me a question about fees. Which of our modules are available as short courses, but most importantly, I think for the MA Education Policy and Practice, because we have such a wide range of modules available, we can discuss a bespoke package that will particularly suit your needs. So if you would like to discuss your options with me, I look forward to hearing from you.
Now some different things to consider here, and I'm pleased to say that Dr. Rhiannon Packer is here again to answer some of these questions that might have risen. So it's interesting and again really exciting, because this I think affords a little bit more divergence perhaps, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Rhiannon, but you know, I remember training with colleagues that I was working with in a school, and one of my colleagues specialised in ALN or SEN as it was way back when, showing my age, and then I looked more generally at early years practice and leadership within early years for my MA. So really interesting listening to Jan there, because it sounds as though you can actually make this package a little bit more bespoke. Now, Lisa, I know that's one of the queries that's come up. Would you like to now take on board the questions that have come up in the chat to direct them to Rhiannon for us, please?
Absolutely, yes. Quite a few questions coming from all of that information, Rhiannon. Now students have a choice. So how do I decide? How do I decide which MA programme, to join? Could you tell us the main differences, please, between the leadership and management programme that Jan has just explained and maybe some of the other choices of MA that students have?
Yeah, definitely, and it's a real shame that Jan's not here. Jan's not very well today, so she sends her apologies about not being at today's session. So I hope listening to me speak again doesn't confuse everybody even further. I think the what we call the home MA programme, so the MA education with pathways. So if you're going to have a look at that on the website, it's the MA education with pathways. It does offer maybe a wider variety of module options available to you, and there's a bit more flexibility in the way that you undertake the study. So again, it is aimed at people in practice, people working. You don't need to be in year 3 of practice. You can apply whenever you like. So you might want to do it straight after your PGCE. You're really still itching to study. You can take the course full-time or part-time, whereas the MA Education Wales is part-time only. So you've got a choice to do it full-time or part-time. A lot of it is face-to-face, so some people don't like the online learning. They like to be in a classroom with others. They like they like that experience. So you've got that opportunity there. What else have I put? Yeah. So there's a variety of modules, and you can pick and choose whichever modules you like and when you'd like to do them roughly. A lot of them are either in the evening or around half term or in Easter break. Again, when you start the course at the beginning of the year, you'll be told exactly when the courses will be running in a similar way to the MA Education Wales. But there are some similarities, but quite a lot of difference as well.
Oh, thank you, Rhiannon. And you've just answered. Thank you, Rhiannon. You've just answered the second question, actually. Do I need to be in years 3 to 6 of my teaching career? And the answer then is no. So I'll jump straight to the next one, please, if I may. It says there are 60 level credits, 60 level 7 credits available to me for completing the PGCE. But I'm an international student. Are these still, you know, is this something that I can use abroad?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, I'm afraid. I think that would be something that when you were applying abroad, you would need to query that first. So I don't know the answer to the question. If you do apply abroad for your MA, it's something that you would need to ask of that institution.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I'm just trying to go to the fourth question now. Where was it? Just trying to find it. Question 4.
Was it something about finance?
Yes. So having the 60 credits again, they're all very keen to do something with their 60 credits after the degree, so that's really good news. Does it mean I only need to do years 2 and 3? So just again, a bit of reiteration of some of the main facts. I think you said that, didn't you, that the 60 credits give you year 1, so it's just year 2 and 3, and just a reminder about the cost.
Yeah, so for this program, it's up to you. You've got, again, as I mentioned earlier, you've got a lot more flexibility, so it's up to you. As Jan mentioned, you can either go into the second year of study and do the three modules and dissertation, or you can do the 5 modules. You can go into year 1 and do the 5 modules and the dissertation. This isn't Welsh Government funded, so you would have to apply for a student loan. So again, the student loan company would organise that, and it would be either, again, part-time, full-time. So, you know, you might want to carry on studying full-time and go into teaching later. That's up to you. You've got that flexibility. And as you are a Cardiff Met student, you get a student discount as alumni.
Right, excellent. I've just got one more question from an international student again. Can they engage with the programme abroad, or do they have to be living in Wales?
I think that'd be a question that Jan would be in a better position to answer. I'm not sure that all the courses or all the modules are available remotely. So that probably is a question that Jan would be in a better position to answer, because she would know if those modules are available. I have been teaching on the ALN. Well, I do teach on the ALN modules, and I know for the dyslexia modules, we're not able to deliver them remotely. So this person would need to contact Jan directly.
That's great. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Rhiannon. Absolutely wonderful. And thanks so much, Lisa, for facilitating those questions, and expertly done there. I think, you know, Jan was very encouraging there of student teachers reaching out to her. So I have put Jan's email into the chat. I say hopefully she'll have a flurry of emails, although please bear in mind, guys, she's not feeling very well at the moment. She does have COVID, so she may take a little bit longer than usual to respond. But it does sound as though if you are an international student, there might be some opportunity for enabling a bespoke pathway for to help you to focus on the content that you can do online. So it's certainly worth posing that inquiry. Really interesting and exciting. I'm so looking forward to continuing to engage with our postgraduate students this year as they move on through their MA, noticing some of the policy enactment and policy features or focus points there. I'm sure that some of you will come back to me on physical literacy if that's something that you choose to engage with, or back to Lisa in respect of mathematics pedagogy, for instance, for primary. Indeed, we look forward to hearing from you if you carry on. So we've got a few questions about funding. We'll come back to those after our last presentation, and I'm delighted now to introduce Dr. Louise Allen Walker. Louise is actually a chartered psychologist as well as being a senior lecturer in psychology and education. So I'm going to hand over to Louise now, who's going to do her presentation for us, and there'll be some space for you to ask some questions at the end.
Thanks so much, Gemma, and thanks so much for having me today. Yeah, so this talk really is about psychology in education. I was asked to talk about the masters that I'm programme director of, but actually I kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about some research that I'm doing right now that kind of links quite nicely to that. But first I'll introduce myself. Tom, if you're okay to move me to the next slide, thank you. So as Gemma said, I'm a chartered psychologist and a senior lecturer in psychology and education. I did my undergrad in Swansea, though I'm not from Wales. I came to Swansea to do my undergrad and basically never left. So I did my BSc in psychology in Swansea, my MSc in psychological research at Bangor University, and then I stayed up in North Wales to do my PhD, where I used brain stimulation to look at language function, which was very cool. And then once I finished my PhD and I worked as a lecturer up there for a little while, I came down to Cardiff Met to start working on programmes here. So my research area really is around the application of psychology to education, which brings me kind of perfectly to the research that I've been doing. So this is a project that I've been working on with Tom Breeze, Jenny Clement and Shan Sawa. So you might know some of those names from your time with us. And what we were interested in was how psychology is utilised in the classroom and how sometimes psychology is misunderstood in the classroom as well. So psychology is the examination of the mind and the brain and how it influences or changes behaviour. So topics that we're particularly interested in as psychologists are things like kind of cognitive thought processes, biological processes that underlie certain behaviours, personality, and how that might affect the way that you interact with different people, which kind of then feeds into social interactions, and how you might interpret different ways that you interact with different people. The way that we develop, not just as children, but throughout the lifespan. And as you can probably see, all of these things feed into education and classrooms, which kind of brings us then to the rationale for the research. So obviously, psychology can be really useful in the classroom. If you think about the processes that are involved in classroom settings, memory and learning, thought processes while you're kind of processing information that you're learning about, the way that the brain and neurons change while you're learning information, the social interactions between the teacher, the learners, amongst the learners, obviously development, and kind of a big hot button topic is stress and resilience, not just in terms of the learners, but also in terms of the teachers as well. It's a very stressful time, and all of these things are really important kind of psychology topics that are perhaps not well understood in educational settings, because what we found is that actually a lot of education practitioners haven't necessarily had the opportunity to engage with this sort of information. So ITE education has historically involved little or no psychology content at all. And what research has found is that this can sometimes lead to practices that are lacking a rigorous understanding of how learning actually happens, like what is the process that results in learning, and also some misconceptions about psychology, and in some cases, a classic example being learning styles. These misconceptions can hinder or in some cases negatively impact learning. So the utilisation of learning styles in classrooms actually has a really negative impact on learners that can last a really long time. So the understanding of psychology in order to kind of critically consider what information you're being given is really important for people working in classrooms. So the reason that we did this project is because research still shows that there are loads of misconceptions about neuroscience for those people who are involved in education. This is across all different levels of education, right the way from early years through to higher education. This is present in head teachers, teachers, learning support, assistants. This is prevalent in Wales, England, across Europe and beyond. There is a real issue here where educators are still having these misconceptions about neuroscience. But actually, when we looked into the literature, we found that there was very little research looking at the variety of different topics within psychology. They predominantly focused on neuroscience topics. And because ITE is currently moving towards a really research-informed model, what we wanted to do was create a resource that helps with this, to kind of give educators a tool to learn about psychology, to critically consider psychology content, and something that we could easily kind of utilize in a lot of different settings. And the first step of this was really to find out what it is that early years practitioners and teachers know about these different areas of psychology before we can design this intervention. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. We were trying to recruit really widely across Wales, and we had interest from a variety of different schools. You can see that we predominantly had responses from primary settings, but we had a good chunk from secondary as well as ALN settings, which was great. We also had participants from across 17 different local education authorities across Wales, which was really great as well, to have that engagement across all of Wales. Also, to give you some context, we designed 70 psychology facts in inverted commas, though not all of them were true. And these were looked at by members of staff who are previously teachers at different levels, secondary, primary, and also early years, and also by 2 other psychologists other than myself, to make sure that they were kind of a well-designed and broad collection of facts. And what we found, firstly, was that teachers are very, very keen to integrate psychology theory into their practice. So we asked teachers how confident they felt about applying psychology, how confident they felt critically evaluating psychology, and how motivated they were to utilise it. And although the confidence and the critical evaluation was much lower on a scale of 1 to 7 on average, teachers were very, very keen. So what this tells us is we just need to bridge that gap to help build that confidence for teachers to be able to do what they're so motivated to do, which is really great. So this brings us on to the facts then. So overall accuracy, which you see on the bar on the right hand side, was just under 60%. So yeah, 60% of the questions teachers were on average answering correctly, which is a good chunk, but perhaps not as high as we would like, given that these facts are topics that were specifically chosen because of the importance that they have in education. Some interesting things to note. Obviously, a lot of the research is focused on neuroscience, and you can see that this is the lowest bar. This area of psychology is much lower than the others. Social psychology is also super high, which is great, particularly because, you know, classrooms are such a social setting. That's really good news that that topic scored so highly. And you can see that the remainder of psychology topics are kind of lingering around that 60% mark, with research methods just slightly higher, which is a really good basis actually for teachers to begin critically considering the kind of content that they'll read about in the future. Another thing to note here, so this is just a scatter plot looking at the percentage of accuracy in years in teaching, and as you can probably tell from this graph, the dots are all over the place. This kind of tells us that there really is no relationship between the number of years someone's been teaching and how good they are at identifying these facts as correct or incorrect. And what this tells us is that years in practice isn't helpful to increase knowledge of psychology. It needs to be actual delivery of psychology content, which is going to be really helpful here. So what did we find then? So some of the things that we looked at in relation to accuracy was the kind of previous qualifications where teachers had been taught about psychology. So one of the things to kind of flag is that in this first pie chart, all I'd done was ask them where they'd previously been taught psychology. And the vast majority, that large blue segment on the top right, that's teachers who have never formally been taught about psychology, despite the fact that it's so integral to education. You can see a kind of smattering from other qualifications, and professional learning being the kind of larger wedge on the top left. The kind of one that I wanted to particularly flag is the PGCE, which is the kind of dark green one on the left hand side. That's really small. So the PGCE, you know, it's the thing that prepares you to go out and to teach. And these teachers, when they did their PGCEs back in, you know, when they were qualifying, they didn't cover any psychology content, which obviously is not helpful in applying psychology knowledge. We also looked then at accuracy. Oh, sorry, Tom, can we go back one? Thank you. We also looked at accuracy and the highest level of qualification on which they'd formally been taught about psychology. And you can see that where they have covered psychology on their PGCE and where they've covered it on an MA and MSc, their accuracy is much higher than the other bars. Including, you know, obviously the having not been formally taught it before and covering it at a lower level like GCSE and A level. So this kind of higher education on in psychology in the context of delivering psychology, using psychology in practice is really, really useful, and obviously that really helped. Interestingly, the professional learning was actually unhelpful. They performed a little bit worse than the people who'd never been taught psychology formally. So I just wanted to flag some of the questions where accuracy was particularly low. There are some themes here, and I think the themes come from kind of packages that are sometimes sold to schools using kind of pop psychology, which is often not accurate. The objectives being to sell a product. The big one being learning styles. So you can see that the second question down, which had only 18% accuracy, children have learning styles that are dominated by particular senses. This is incorrect, but this is still really prolific, and this is partly because learning styles has been sold as a product to schools. You can see that this is reflected in another question, and my eyes are failing me now to find it. Oh yeah, it's gone, doesn't matter. Okay, the other questions to flag are near the bottom about coordination exercises, helping to integrate information, integrate brain function to improve literacy skills. Again, this has been sold as a product to schools and it's not accurate. And this is again coming up as an area that's really you know, really got poor accuracy amongst teachers. And so teachers are wasting classroom time doing interventions that are not helpful. But if they knew a little bit more psychology, they would be able to know on the face of it that these are unhelpful things to be using their time on. If we move to the next slide, I wanted to go through some of the questions where accuracy was really high, but I'm a little bit pressed for time. So I'll leave it here, and hopefully you can have a look at these slides after and kind of see where accuracy was really good. But just to kind of reiterate, they were kind of the social psychology questions again, which is great. So the future directions of this project, we are collecting data looking at the same knowledge amongst trainee teachers and students on early years practitioner programmes. I believe you've already been contacted to participate, so if anyone does have any interest, you'll have had an email already. We're also looking at focus groups amongst trainees, but also staff members who deliver ITE programmes, and practitioners and teachers who work in these settings, to try and find out how we can best create a resource that's going to be really useful and really effective for teachers and newly qualified teachers as well, to engage with amongst all of the other pressures that teachers are under, because research has shown that a one-off inset day is insufficient and doesn't change behaviours. So we need to find a way that really builds in this practice to help support teachers to change the way that they're kind of using their pedagogy. So this kind of leads in quite nicely then to the Masters, because obviously the Masters is all about applying psychology to education. This was kind of the main motivator for designing this Masters programme. This is a BPS accredited program, so what this means is that people, once they've successfully completed it, have graduate basis for chartership with the British Psychological Society, which is kind of a marker that you've covered all of the core areas of psychology, and you can be confident that you've covered kind of all of the appropriate areas. Anyone who's interested in a career in psychology would be a good fit for this program, but also if you're looking to utilize psychology in education, this is a really good fit as well. We've had lots of teachers come onto this program, and every year they kind of say, wow, I'd never thought of this. This is so helpful. I'm going to use this in my practice kind of throughout the sessions, which is really great. So you don't need to have studied psychology before. At any level, we assume no knowledge, and you can just join from, I mean, obviously you guys are coming from having done PGCs or ITE programs. So yeah, the entry requirements are a 2-1 or equivalent. So if you have a 2-2 but you have a postgraduate qualification and you want to get in touch, that would be great. Some other things to flag about this program. So we cover kind of key issues around individual development, around neuroeducation. We talk about human behaviour in the classroom. We talk about research methods, things like interventions to support mental health and well-being are a big focus on the programme. So essentially it's kind of all of the areas of psychology, and we specifically focus on the application of those areas. So all sessions will involve some psychology and the application of that to education, which is great. There's also a professional placement module, but that's only available if you've already done a BPS accredited degree, so like an undergraduate degree or a conversion programme, which probably won't apply to many people in this room, but just to flag that. Brill. So I think that brings me to the end. Oh, not quite. Sorry, Tom. Thank you. So the careers that this can lead you to, obviously, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking that you want to be teachers, and using psychology in education is going to be really helpful to a career in teaching. But also, if anyone is thinking that they might want to be maybe an educational psychologist, a common path is to go away and be a teacher for a while. And this would give you one of the prerequisites for the professional training programs like educational psychology, which is a doctorate level qualification. But really, you can do careers in a variety of different settings where the types of skills that you learn are really relevant. And I've got a list on the slides here. And finally, anyone thinking of doing like doctoral level research, like an EdD or a PhD, you'd also get some really valuable skills from this as well. So I appreciate I've kind of given you a bit of a whistle to stop tour there of a few different things. If you have any questions about the research or about the programme, my email address is there. Obviously put some stuff in the chat as well. And there's also, I wanted to flag an open day for postgraduate programmes, including the MSc Psychology and Education, which is on the 25th of June, which is this Saturday. And you'd be very welcome to come in and have a chat with me and, see our resources, meet the team, that sort of thing. And I'll put the link in the chat as well in a moment. So I think that brings me to the end. Thank you so much.
Diolch yn iawn, Louise. I can see that some of our colleagues are here in the chat. Chris Sabol said, brilliant research. Indeed it is, and it really makes me reflect on how much of a psychology stance I've had within my training and how I'm able to use that effectively within my practice as a higher education institution teacher. And indeed in my practice when I was a primary school teacher. I've been working really closely with some colleagues from the School of Sport and Health Science and the School of Education and Social Policy, who are both have a psychologist background, and it really does bring something different to your reflection as what I still class myself as a practitioner. So it's really enabling me to be more reflexive and reflective in my practice, just having conversations with those colleagues. It's a wonderful opportunity for student teachers now to be thinking about engaging within a formal pathway there, and again lots of flexibility. So it would be wonderful if you could pop your email address in the chat for me, Louise, and I'll post that into the formal Q&A for the student teachers, and I'm sure that many of them will take up your opportunity to engage on the open day on Saturday, or at least to get in touch, particularly for international students, because some international students here are asking if they can engage with this programme. So a wonderful presentation. We're actually at the point now where we might have time for one question, Lisa. I can see you're about to say that you've got something burning to ask. Do you want to come in and ask the final question?
I will. Thank you, Louise. That is fascinating. And I hope lots of people attend your open day on Saturday. That's a really good opportunity to find out more. Louise, just very quickly, in 45 seconds left, I've been told, what about further reading? So neuroscience and psychology, I'm excited about it, but how can I find out more, please?
Absolutely. So I've put it in the chat. I think we can post it through so that the students can see a book that I absolutely love. It's called The Science of Learning, and it's written by psychologists for teachers. And it's 99 key kind of psychology studies written up in a nice, accessible way, no psych jargon that can, kind of cloud everything. Simply, what is this study? What did they find? And how can you use it in practice? It's a really great book. I recommend it to my students all the time. So hopefully that can be passed on to you guys as well.
That's great. Diolch yn fawr, Louise. And if you just stick around for another 10 seconds, guys, we're going to put her email into the chat. But we look forward to seeing you on the next session, which is now at 12:20. And it's our parallel paper session. So we've got separate English medium and Welsh sessions there. OK, enjoy your break and we'll see you all very shortly. Da bo chi.